Not as good as Jesus, the front page of L'Equipe, reflecting on PSG's 2-1 defeat against Manchester City. Gabriel Jesus, of course, on the score sheet for the hosts in that victory. Jules, you cut a very angry figure yesterday. I imagine that was reciprocated pretty much by quite a lot of PSG supporters over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, you're right. And in the French media as well, highly critical of the performance. Pochettino, of course, and the lack of identity, intensity, call it whatever you want, and the fact that he's been there almost a year. It will be a year at the start of January, and that we still don't really see what he wants to do with those players. I think the players also got criticised, and rightly so. Messi and Neymar, the way, the inability to play out from the back. Everything that we explained yesterday pretty much was on French radio, French TV, or in the newspaper this morning, and rightly so. It's just, there was nothing new as we explained yesterday. It's just that, again, you get the confirmation of the gap between the top European teams and this PSG team where, as L'Equipe was saying, there's so much work to be done there.
Nadim, you were at the game. What struck you in particular about PSG?
I think, to be honest, as far as the game went, I thought City in the first maybe 10-15 minutes weren't great. PSG were finding their way through them, hitting them on, like, City couldn't couldn't press well enough. But City adjusted, whereas I think overall PSG didn't. And I think that was the alarming thing, to be honest with you, because in some ways, as the game was progressing, they were playing into City's hands. And then it seemed like for the midfielders of PSG, they got to a point where they didn't trust the front three to press at all. So they had to go half-hearted with their press as well, which again played into City's hands. And it was a weird thing to see, because looking at it on paper, you saw PSG's starting 11, you saw the depth of their bench. But for City, they were missing Foden, they were missing De Bruyne, and they were missing Grealish, like Ferran Torres and so on. So they weren't at their absolute strongest. But in the end, you know, they left the game. They feel like they deserved it, and they didn't look rattled at all by the threat the PSG had, which was a big shame for them, really.
Craig, obviously, from a Manchester City's perspective, they got it done, but how easy did PSG make it for them?
About as easy as they made it in Paris, without City actually scoring the goals in Paris, would be the answer. I think the concern would be that it wasn't a huge surprise the way City outplayed Paris Saint-Germain, even with those names, because they did the same earlier in the season. And the worrying thing is that, as Julian pointed out, there's been no real change. It's not like it was, well, yeah, he was working on it at that point and he sort of sorted it out. It was exactly the same. And City they're certainly not the easiest team to play against. In fact, they're one of the most difficult in world football to play against, the way they pass it. But there was, you know, PSG and Pochettino looked like they had no idea how to try and combat it. Now, that might be down to the manager, it might be down to one or two of the players, but it could also be down to the fact that the three up front throw the towel in defensively. So you pick the bones of where the problem is. It might be a little bit of everything, but I think to see a team who have spent the money they have spent and have an ownership who don't want to hear that we're not competing at the moment on the field with the Cities and one or two others. They just don't want to hear that. They want to hear the opposite. And they're not seeing it. That's a huge concern.
Jules, you look at it, what, Blanc, Tuchel, Emery, now Pochettino. Is it just impossible, this job? Is that the problem?
I don't know if it is. Maybe it is. Well, certainly to take this team to win the Champions League, Tuchel came close. The others, not so much. But I think the arrival of Messi, the front three with Mbappe and Neymar, and we've said it again, but you cannot win the Champions League defending with 7 players out of your 10 outfield players. This is impossible. Liverpool, City, Bayern Munich, even Real Madrid, they don't do it. And PSG cannot do it. As genius as Messi is, and Neymar and Mbappe, anything you want, if you defend at 7, you will never get anywhere. And I think until someone, whether that's Pochettino, Zidane, you, my mum, anyone, I don't know if it's even convincing them, because I think if you're Messi or Neymar and Mbappe, you know you're not going anywhere like this. You know you must have reflected on last night's game and thinking, okay, of course we can play, but we have to defend better than this. We have to be more united in the way we press, in the way we set up, in the way our block is shuffling from right to left. I mean, how many diagonals towards Mahrez in the whole first half and even the second half? This was too easy at times. So I think they know it. I just don't know why they don't do it. And then we go back to the manager. Is it the manager's problem that they don't do that? Do you need someone like Zidane who has had Galacticos before and maybe his pragmatism is better suited than a dressing room like this? I don't know, but you're right. There's a sense of unmanageable dressing room almost.
Jules brings up a good point. They've won everything, those front three. World Cups, Champions Leagues, Ballon d'Or, the whole shebang. Why aren't they on the same page as the coach, or why aren't they in that mind space where they know what it takes to win, so why aren't they doing it?
I think you've got to look at the manager. You have to look at the manager. Listen, football players, a lot of football players think they're doing their job. But when they have a manager who's on their back, who doesn't give them a centimetre of room, then they do the job. There's a complete difference between doing it and thinking you're doing it. And you need somebody on your back. You need somebody on your back. And when you've not got somebody on your back, which it seems like Pochettino's not, and you've also gone in to a dressing room that is a little relaxed, shall we say, and that means that if we think this is not happening in games, you can be sure they're not training properly.
Right.
Because the old saying is true. You play the way you train. And clearly, it's not just about the games, it's about training. It's not getting done properly in training.
But that's not going to change, is it?
No, it's not going to change. Not unless Pochettino, we spoke about it yesterday, Craig brought it up, not unless Pochettino has the guts to turn around and say, right, you and you, this is what you do, and if you don't, you're not playing. Because if I keep playing you and you don't do your job, guess what? You ain't getting the sack, I'm getting the sack. That's the only way it'll change. And if he doesn't do that, then, well, just get used to seeing what you saw.
We take Tuchel out of the equation because he was at PSG and actually on the face of it, he handled it pretty well when we see the problems that Pochettino's having. But you look at City and Liverpool, and I know it's Messi, Neymar and Mbappe, but you know, they're world-class players at both those teams that I mentioned. If they're not pressing from the front, if they're not working hard, if they're not working back, they're not playing. Klopp's not playing them. Guardiola's not playing them. Doesn't matter if it's Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling, Riyad Mahrez, Sergio Aguero when he was there. Doesn't matter. You know, if it's affecting the team, you're not playing. Now, I know it's difficult, but there's a big decision to be made here. And somebody's going to throw their toys out the pram when they're left out. I get that, but why? You might as well go down fighting now. There's still a long way to go in the season. Hell, they might turn it around and they might win the League On and win the Champions League. You never know. But it certainly looks unlikely. And I think Pochettino, as Stevie said, as a manager, has to at least go down fighting and show some stomach, because at the moment, that front three is dictating how the rest of the team operates. And that's completely the opposite of the other top boys in Europe. It all starts from the front three and it filters its way back.
Well, let's take a look at how the bookies have things set regarding the Champions League this season. Manchester City are favourites to win their first title, just ahead of Bayern Munich and Liverpool. Chelsea, surprisingly, 6-1. When you take a look at the way they've been playing, that looks like a good bet. Overall, though, Naden, City favourites, is that right?
You know, odds are odds, but you look at Bayern Munich, they're playing obviously very well. And then Chelsea as well. And you know, Liverpool, I think the PSG one, you can see why there's a belief that they won't be favourites for it. But, you know, Chelsea won it last year and they look better this year than they did last year. Liverpool's running into great form as well. And they've got the formidable sort of home that is Anfield. So, I don't know, it's interesting. City obviously have pedigree in it, but I think this is going to be a very, very tough year for them if they're going to be able to do it, because the opposition have seen them for once more and they know the weaknesses. So, I don't know, they might be favourites, but what does that really mean when it's the end of the season?
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.